First video on the new channel. Let's break this down. This is probably my favorite deck in the BT-09 format. This is my Magna X antibody build. First up, let's break down the rookies. It's pretty standard. Everyone has their own way they like to break down their VMons, but to start with, obviously we have 4 jamming VMons, absolutely staple in this deck. You can get a quick hit in with this, and then evolve with Davison Ken to unsuspend into one of your armors, and pretty cheap, pretty easy, able to 2-tap if you have a Fire Rocket. You could even get 3 or more, depending on how it plays out. Absolutely run 4. Now we have BT-08 VMon. This is the one that searches for your top 4 to add a 2-color blue card among them. This is great, especially when you're searching for a Magnamon X or a Megadeth, which I find in this format, Megadeths are absolutely amazing for clearing out all these big stacks, and sometimes you absolutely need a Magna just to protect yourself, because everything's trying to one-turn kill you, and Magna can at least buy you some time. Depending on your matchups, sometimes you want to get into Magna just ASAP. Then we're running 3 of the EX1 VMons. On this one, it has an inheritable where if it unsuspends during main phase, you gain 1 memory. So it should activate when you're like evolving into a Magnamon or evolving with Davison Ken. Just gets you 1 extra memory, helps out a ton. I'm running 3 of the starter deck 9 VMons. This one's reveal top 3 cards of your deck, add 1 with free in its traits. This is going to get you other VMons and armors. It just adds a little consistency. We have 1 hybrid, just with Lobomon. Typically, just going to do this one to swing for game. It's nice to have just a little extra consistency. We're running 3 Flamedramon instead of 4, just because we don't have a ton of space in this deck and we needed to cut something, and I prefer keeping the Lydramons up to give us access to Megadeths, and a Lydramon on top of a jamming VMon typically gives you chances to use things like Davison Ken or unsuspend into Magnamons when needed. So I didn't want to cut 1 Lydramon. Flamedramon was definitely the pick. I'm running 4 Magnamons. These ones are great for like mid-game. They're an amazing blocker, and the later you play it in the game, the stronger it's going to get, because when Digivolving, it gets plus 2,000 for every armor form in your trash. It's absolutely great. And it also unsuspends itself on evolution, so definitely play around with this one, and you can squeeze out a lot of security checks in just 1 turn. 4 Lydramon, because on evolution you can suspend 1 of your opponent's level 4 or lowers. This is great for getting around blockers or killing things that, let's say you have a lot of blue memory boosts that you want to pop, but they have a Madoki. Play Lydramon, suspend that Madoki, get it off the board. It's great for just being able to deal with problematic things on the board that you don't want to like waste a Megadeth on. Then there's I'm running only 3 of the Magna X antibodies. I didn't feel like 4 was quite necessary. I always was able to find them when need be. This one essentially is just an 11k wall your opponent has to deal with. I'll read the effects here. During your opponent's turn, when an opponent's Digimon attacks, if a card with armor form in its traits or X antibodies in this Digimon's evolutions cards, you may switch the target of an attack to this Digimon. All turns, when this Digimon would be deleted, you may place it on the top of your security stack. So this activates when he's suspended, as soon as he's played, anything. So it's just 11k, you can direct anything into Magnamon. So it just stops all attacks that are underneath that 11k threshold. Great way to stall out the game if you need to set up something. Maybe you still got like 2 or 3 security to check. This is great for buying time. Running 3 Fire Rockets. This is speed. You can get +1 security check for only 1 cost on your armor forms. Absolutely. With Fire Rocket, you can get some pretty cheesy plays, especially if you have a jamming VMon to play with. So let's say you swing with the Jamming Vmon, and then you could evolve into a Magnamon to unsuspend, or if you have a Davis and Ken, you could evolve into any of your armor forms and unsuspend that Digimon to get some more swings. And then even if Armor Purge activates, Fire Rocket's still active. So if you're able to swing with, let's say, a Lydramon, it pops Armor Purge, and then you can unsuspend it somehow, and that Lydramon before Armor Purge popped, you still get that +1 security check. So you could theoretically just off a Lydramon, and then Armor Form pops, and then back into another Lydramon. You could do 4 security checks easy. Armor Texture is another way to unsuspend. It removes the top armor form, and then you can re-evolve into another armor form you have in your hand. Super good way to keep going fast. Awakening of the Golden Knight is sort of like a pseudo armor texture. It's 3 cost, and then you can evolve a armor form into anything with Magnamon in its name. So that means you could even evolve from a Flamedramon into a Magnamon, and then you could unsuspend with Magnamon's when digivolving ability. This one's really good. Don't sleep on it. And when you hit it in security, it returns a Magnamon from your trash into your hand, on top of also putting the Awakening in your hand. 1 Ice Wall. It's a blue staple. Can buy you a turn. Really good. If you're unfamiliar with it, it just says all of your opponents gain when attacking lose memory until the end of your opponent's next turn. For this build, I am opting for 4 blue memory boosts instead of 4 hammer sparks. I find in this meta, being able to go for big 1-turn plays is much, much better, especially with how much removal everyone is running. I just find setting up for a big turn next turn is just way better than with the hammer sparks being that same turn. It really helps with like against Metal Garurumon X, because it was just so hard to keep Digimon on the field because of all the bounce to your hand that deck has. So I found raising something up in the raising area, then promoting, and then doing as much damage as possible, knowing that stack's going to die at the start of the next turn. Blue memory boost, I think in this format is the way to go. For Megadeth, as I mentioned earlier in the video, everyone's running big stacks. This can remove big stacks. Again, also, it's amazing to find insecurity. It just stops them in their tracks. Absolutely need 4 Megadeth in this format. Do not think about cutting it. 2 Davis. I would run 3 if I could, but I feel like it's consistent enough to see it. Blue staple, on play, reveal the top 3 cards, add 1 blue Digimon and 1 green Digimon among them to your hand, and then start of your turn sets your memory to 3. Davis and Ken is, as I mentioned earlier, your turn ability. If you evolve a Digimon into something that's 2 or more colors, it can unsuspend that Digimon. But also, at the start of your main phase, you gain 1 memory if you have a blue Digimon in play, and 1 memory if you have a green Digimon in play. So I found it really helpful to have a Lydramon in raising, and when you promote, that's the start of your main phase. So let's say you have a Davis and a Davis and Ken. If you promote that Lydramon, you're starting your turn with 5 memory, which is super good. There's just so much utility with this card. Absolutely get this down on the field as soon as possible. For the eggs, I'm just running 4 Upas. It seems like it's the most consistent draw card that you can have for eggs. I know it's a little expensive, but I think you absolutely want this one. Okay, to talk about matchups a little bit, I'm going to talk about some of the meta decks right now. This deck does well against basically everything except Alphamon and Metal Garurumon. Alphamon, I've heard people say Alphamon is this deck's worst matchup, but I definitely think it's Metal Garurumon. Alphamon, as long as you can keep them at bay, just try to always have access to Megadeth is a really big thing. The OTK potential of that deck is just always scary, but if you can get the ball rolling fast enough before they set up, then you should be able to get a win on that. Metal Garurumon it's a weird deck to fight, just because it can remove stuff so easy. especially with those unsuspend abilities that bounces lowest play cost to your hand. In this format, I don't find myself with a wide board too often, so I typically only ever had like 1 or 2 things on my board, and Metal Garurumon just constantly is pushing stuff back into my hand. So with that one, it's really good to just try to go for big plays right out of raising. Don't expect your stacks to last more than 1 turn. Against Grandis was a little weird. There's a lot of blockers that deck plays. Like, they typically are going to have 1 or 2 blockers up and then wait for the Grandis to come out of raising. But the good thing is we have access to quite a bit of blockers that we can get strong, especially in the mid to late game. And because we're running armor purges, piercing doesn't activate if they have to attack into an armor purge Digimon, so I definitely think this is a little bit of a weird matchup to play against, but I think it could very easily go either way. And then another one, security control, trying to go balls to the wall as fast as possible. Don't let them set up. That one's just super aggro. Like, if you think you can get 1 more security check in your turn, absolutely go for it. You do not want that deck setting up on you. I think that's for anyone that's playing against security control. Just run fast. Same with D-Reaper. If you do, because that deck is getting pretty popular. D-Reaper, Gatekeeper really messes up this matchup. So you just have, when you're fighting D-Reaper, you just have to win before they get Gatekeeper up. So and they can get Gatekeeper up maybe turn 3, 4, 5 in that range. So yeah, with that, and if you don't think you're going to get it before they meet the Gatekeeper requirements, definitely try to get some tamers down, because you're going to essentially just have to Megadeth it. Or, well, let's see, what's the DP of that one? I searched it up earlier. Yeah, you'd have to remove it somehow. Yeah, you'd have to suspend it somehow with Lydramon or Megadeth it, which really wouldn't help you too much if you had a Megadeth it, because it just goes right back to their hand and they play it again next turn. But yeah, I think those are all the super relevant matchups, but I like this deck a lot. I don't think there's anything I'd tweak for it for the rest of the meta. I think that I'm just rolling with this one, and I'm going to start playtesting some other stuff. Alright, thank you for watching. If you like the content, definitely subscribe. It's going to help the channel a lot.